Hello everyone and welcome back to the Ryan Retro channel. So, this happened recently. And if you watched my previous video about the Odin 3, you'll know that this is only possible thanks to you guys who graciously donated to me a month or so ago. So thank you so much to everybody who helped me to buy one Odin 3, because in the end, it resulted in me getting 2 Odin 3s. Now, of course, I don't need 2 Odin 3s, so I will be doing a giveaway when I get to 40,000 subscribers. So please subscribe if you haven't already. We are on track to hit that at around the end of January, which is when one of these would ship out if you were to buy one now anyway. So I'm looking forward to giving one of these away to you guys to say thank you for watching me for the past year. So I've already showed on the channel before this lovely white Max model that I got originally. This is my review unit that I've received in order to make a review. It's absolutely beautiful. It has 16 gigabytes of RAM and 512 gigabytes internal storage. And then a few days ago, I received the version that was bought for me by my lovely subscribers. This is my rainbow colored 12 gigabytes of RAM Pro model with a 256 gigabytes of storage. And it is beautiful. I really like these colorful buttons. I've never had a colorway like this before. And when I asked my girlfriend which one she thought was more beautiful, she said they are both lovely, but she prefers this one because it looks more unique. So here they are, my 2 Odin 3s in all of their glory, the Pro model and the Max model. If you ordered an Ultra model, they have been postponed for at least a month. And I've seen a lot of backlash and outcry over this. People who ordered their Ultra models way back when they first were announced are not getting them anytime soon. And people like me who just walked in, swanning along casually at the last minute, way after they ordered, are just getting them sent right out like this if it's a Pro model or a Max model, which is a real shame. And I do feel sorry for the people who backed an Ultra model ages ago and aren't going to get it anytime soon. That really sucks. Now, it might be out of AYN's hands a little bit because of recent RAM price surges and all that kind of rubbish, but I do really feel sorry for the people who haven't got one when I've got 2. I'm in no way bragging about this, I just wanted to talk about it. So in today's video, let's jump into the 12 gigabyte model. I've already got a video of the 16 gigabyte model you can check out. First of all, let's just look at them a little bit closer and compare the colorways, and then we'll get into some performance testing and see how much of a difference 12 gigabytes and 16 gigabytes really makes. So let's look a little bit closer. Of course, the white model is completely all whited out with white buttons, white sticks, white everything. And I think this looks really nice. Followers of my channel will know that I love all black devices. And this to me also just has that really clean look that I always gravitate towards. When it comes to something that I want to take out with me in public and play on the train or plane, I like to get things that are quite stealthy and don't draw too much attention. So I would gravitate to something like this more than something like this if I was taking it out and about. But when I'm just relaxing at home and enjoying my games, I do prefer the more striking look of this. I really love these rainbow colored buttons, SNES inspired, matching the 16-bit tier of my Patreon, which I'll talk to you more about at the end of the video because that's a very exciting development here at Ryan Retro. We have this really retro gray color. It's almost like a kind of beige gray, which really evokes that retro theme. We have the dark gray D-pad and analog sticks as well. All is super nice. Around the back of the handheld, everything matches the chassis. The back buttons, the triggers and shoulder buttons, they all match really nicely. So on the back, you have a similar situation to the white model where everything just blends in with the same color. It's really on the front where you get all of the different colors going on with this rainbow model, but the white model remains really stealthy and clean. So let's now jump into some performance testing, some Switch and PC gaming, and see if there's a big noticeable difference between 12 and 16 gigabytes of RAM or not. Here on the newly, freshly updated RyanRetro.com, under the benchmark section, I'm going to look at the kind of results I got from the 16 gigabyte model of the Odin 3, and we're going to see how it compares to the 12 gigabytes model of the Odin 3. I've also recently spent a lot of time on my website, so if you haven't checked it out recently, do check out all the latest updates. There's all kinds of animations and graphics going on here that were not present before. But once again, we'll get into this later on in the video. Let's begin with some Nintendo Switch testing with Eden Nightly. You're going to hear the fan really ramp up now and get very noisy. One feature I've really been liking about the Odin 3 is you're able to set the fan profile and performance mode per application. What that means is you don't need to keep going through the top menu and flicking between performance modes all the time like we used to have to on other Odin and Retroid devices. Instead, when you're in an application, so for example here I'm in Eden, I can set the performance mode here to high performance. I can also set the fan to sport mode and the gamepad to standard style, which is the Switch style, A and B, right here. And it will remember that every time I open Eden. So you're going to hear the noisy fan right now in sport mode, and this is going to be A and this is going to be B. Then when I close the app, the fan's going to turn off, and it's going to revert back to whatever I set here in the top menu. Then, for example, if I open Game Hub, once again that fan kicks in because, again, I've set Game Hub to be high performance mode with the sport fan. But in Game Hub with PC games, I want to use the Xbox controller layout. So I've set the gamepad to Xbox style. So every game I play in Game Hub will automatically have this be the A button, as most Windows games recognize Xbox controllers better than anything else. So without any changes needed, when I open Game Hub, this is the A button, but when I move over to Eden, this is the A button. It's all automatic, all done for me. I think this is a chef's kiss addition to the Odin 3. So now we're going to get into some game testing, and my initial idea was to run through my whole list of like 30 games or however many I tested before, but I realized that's going to take a really long time. And if you didn't see my post on YouTube a few days ago, I'm currently preparing for a really important test, and I don't have much free time. So what I'm going to do today is just jump into some of the really demanding games and see how they compare on this 12GB model to the 16GB model. We're going to jump into some Switch games first, and then some Windows games as well, all in this one video. The testing conditions will be identical to the previous Odin 3 video, the same save files, the same game files, the same SD card, the same settings, everything will be identical. So here in Breath of the Wild, on my max Odin 3, we were getting around 45 frames per second. Here we're getting around 37. So there is around 8 frames per second less here compared to the max model. So 12GB to 16GB does seem to bring a noticeable difference here, with everything else exactly the same save file running around the same part of the map, all exactly the same. The frame rate is around 36 to 37 frames per second, so a noticeable dip down compared to the 45 frames per second of the 16GB Odin 3. Honestly, more than I was expecting. I was expecting maybe only 2 or 3 frames per second to be different. So when we got 45 frames per second on the Odin 3 16GB version, I was expecting maybe like 42 or something like that on here, if any difference whatsoever. But there is a sizable difference here. I would say overall, looking at the frame counter, the overall frames per second we're getting would be around 36. So quite a bit different to the Odin 3 Max. Here in The Witcher 3, again, we have those horrible glitchy textures, as is to be expected with the Elite chip right now. It's still not ready for Switch gaming. The Odin 3 Max had around 75 frames per second on average. Here we are fluctuating all over the place because we are building shaders, but I did see it hit around 60 to around 73 frames per second earlier. Again, it seems we're clearly getting less than before, but if we just allow the shaders to build in, so we're not losing any frames based on shaders building, it seems like we're getting a frame rate of around 56 frames per second. I did see the frame rate go up to around 73 just once or twice, but overall the frame rate seems to be around 56. So again, quite a large jump down from the 75 of the Max model, which is very interesting to me. Next up, we have Pokemon Sword, and I've chosen this one to show because we actually have 2 different benchmarks in one here. One for these open areas, and another one for in the battle itself, which give quite wildly different frame rates. So the Odin 3 Max version that I tested last time got around 68 frames per second here out in the open world. Here, when we're not building shaders, we're getting around 55. So again, quite a big jump down, which is really interesting. Let's jump into a Pokemon battle now and see how it compares. Before we had around 130 frames per second. We seem to be getting even a little bit higher than 130 frames per second here. So maybe doing even better here. And by the way, Aiden Walls is doing absolutely brilliant here. Ah, spoke too soon. Go Dweeb. Oh, can he do it? I think Dweeb can do it. The level 7 Dweeb against the level 26 Onyx. Come on, Dweeb, you got this. Oh, what a victory. Dweeb and Aiden, the dream team. So overall, the frame rates here are quite a lot lower than the Odin 3 Max, which I'm really quite surprised about, to be honest. I didn't think going above 12 gigabytes really helped much with Switch gaming, but I guess it does. Let's now switch over to GameHub and look at some Windows gaming and how it competes there. I just opened GameHub and I plan to show you all of these games I spent painstakingly setting up for the past few days, and now GameHub won't let me open my files. This is a bug that's happened to me multiple times, and it takes quite a long time to fix. So I'm going to have to just quickly delete the whole thing, reinstall the whole thing, set up the games all over again. So apologies, but I'm going to have to go away, uninstall GameHub, reinstall it, reconfigure everything again, and I will try 3 demanding games and see how they compare with the 16 gigabyte version. Okay, I'm back and I've decided to test 4 games for you. The 2 trickiest ones, Cyberpunk and Elden Ring, the one that's probably the most popular, Grand Theft Auto 5, and also one that gets really high frame rates, Hollow Knight Silksong, just to see what kind of gap there really could be. I was only going to show the really tricky ones like Cyberpunk, but that only got 14 frames per second on the max model anyway, so how much different could it really be? So I decided to also throw Silksong into the mix, which got a whopping 220 frames per second on the max version, to see how big the difference will be between that and this Pro version. So let's get into the test, and we'll just go alphabetically, starting with Cyberpunk. As I mentioned earlier, all of my controls are automatically mapped to the Xbox style, thanks to this lovely side menu customization utility over here, which is fantastic. So without any tinkering needed, I'm in high performance mode, Sport Fan, Xbox button layout. Beautiful software touch there by AYN. Okay, here we are in Cyberpunk after waiting about 15 minutes for the game to actually load, which isn't uncommon for these handheld devices. We're finally into the game, and looking at the frame rate counter at the bottom of the screen, so far we're getting around 13 frames per second. If I get a little bit further away from the main city area, we may be able to get that frame rate up just a little bit, but it does seem to be actually very solidly at 13 frames per second. And I am able to get it up to around 15 or even 17 in some situations. But when I was driving around in the car, which is how I took my benchmarks for my other systems, it was around 13 frames per second. So only 1 frame per second less than the max version of this, pretty much the same. So let's move on now to another game that we got a slightly higher frame per second in last time. And that is Elden Ring, in which we got around 30 frames per second on the Odin 3 Max. So let's see what kind of frame per second we can get here. Here, once again, we are getting around 30 frames per second, even going up to 32 frames per second at times. It is, of course, dipping now and again, especially when it seems we're loading in new textures. On the topic of textures, most of them are missing, as was the case with the other Odin 3 that I tried before. You know, the Elite chip still has a lot of issues in many situations, but it certainly also does have potential. So let's now come and see our friend who falls from the sky to greet us and wish us a Merry Christmas. Here he is. Hey, old buddy, old pal. You're going to see a lot of slowdowns happening, so much so that I can't really even do anything. But overall, you have to say, the frame rate is pretty solid. We do now seem to have just a black screen, and it's not really going very well, but I would say the overall frame rate's very similar to the Odin 3 Max. I would say it was also around 30 frames per second. Now it seems to be doing absolutely nothing, so let's jump into the next game. Next up, let's test GTA 5, a very popular game. In our previous test with the Odin 3 Max, the frame rate fluctuated quite a bit between the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, the 70s. It was going all over the place. And in the end, I decided that the average frame rate was around about 67 frames per second. So if we take a look at the frame rate here, we're getting around 56. I expect to see it fluctuate quite a bit again as we drive around the city. Oh, lovely driving. But here it definitely does seem to be settling somewhere in the high 50s. Somewhere between around 56 or 58 frames per second. I would say we're seeing quite solidly 58 frames per second overall. So that's probably where I would say our average is. In quieter areas, we are getting above 70 frames per second. But I would say overall, yes, it's around about 58 or so frames per second compared to the 67 of the Max. So again, you do notice a frame difference going from 12 gigabytes to 16 gigabytes, more than I expected. And our last Windows game test for now will be Hollow Knight Silksong, because with the Max version of the Odin 3, we got 220 frames per second. So let's see how that compares on here. I measured the frame rate just around here when things started to dip down a little bit. And here we're at around 188, 190 frames per second. The average frames per second is somewhere around there, definitely lower than the 220 of the Max. Yes, I'd put the overall somewhere between 185 and 190 frames per second. So about 30 frames per second less on average than the Max model. So overall, the frame rates of this 12 gigabyte model are quite a bit less than the 16 gigabyte model, and I am surprised by that. Now, of course, I expected the higher spec model to do better than the lower spec model. I didn't expect the differences to be that large. And by large, I mean we're talking about 10 frames per second. It's not the end of the world, it's not a huge difference, but it is more than I expected, because I was under this assumption that 12 gigabytes is pretty much maxing out what you're going to get on an Android device anyway. But it seems that that's not the case, and it may actually be worth going for the 16 gigabyte model if you have the money. I wouldn't recommend going beyond this to the top model, because that's becoming almost impossible to buy right now due to RAM shortages. But the Max model actually does seem like it may be worth the extra money, because you do also get that extra 256 gigabytes internal storage as well, which for things that have to use the internal storage, like Steam games on GameHub and Android games, that can actually be really beneficial. So I am going to make a more deep, in-depth comparison of these two. This video is by no means my in-depth comparison. That's going to be the last video I make. This is purely the first look at these devices compared to each other. I will be going far more in depth with this over the next few weeks. So let me know if that's something you'd like to see in the comments and what you'd like to see compared between these two in the comments. And I will of course be giving one of these away probably around the end of January when I hit 40,000 subscribers. So please subscribe if you haven't already to help me reach that goal. I would love to give one of these a lovely new home to somebody who would really enjoy and use it. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe if you haven't already, and also check out my newly updated website and Patreon channels. I've added so many fancy things to the website that I think you would really enjoy, including all my affiliate links in one place that shows you the best, cheapest price for various handhelds. And I'd like to really thank my Hall of Fame patrons on the screen right now who help make all of this possible. And if you'd like to join this wonderful list of people, please also check out my Patreon link in the description below and on my website. And I'm going to start uploading bonus content only for my patrons. I just uploaded one today showing a little behind the scenes and what's coming up next on the channel. So if you'd like to see that extra bonus Ryan Retro content, as well as joining some exclusive Ryan Retro chatting channels only available for patrons, please check out that Patreon link and consider joining me today. Once again, thank you everybody so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Bye.